Hey everyone! Today we're going to break down Prometheus, which is, let's be honest, pretty much the foundation of modern system monitoring. So let's jump right in and see why it's the tool everyone reaches for when they need to understand their complex apps. So let's start with the big problem, right? Our applications aren't simple monoliths anymore. They're these sprawling, distributed microservice ecosystems. Things are spinning up, spinning down, it's dynamic, it's chaotic, and the old monitoring tools, they just can't keep up. So how do you get the real story of what's happening inside? Back in the day, monitoring was pretty simple. You just check if a specific machine was up or down. But today, with what we call modern observability, that's not enough. We need to see the whole service, not just the server. We need data with tons of context, and it has to be built for the massive scale of the cloud. And that's exactly where Prometheus comes in. It's built on a completely different philosophy. This isn't just about grabbing logs. It's about actively taking a snapshot of your entire system's health. Okay, so what's the secret? Well, at its heart, Prometheus thinks about everything in terms of time series data. Just imagine a never-ending stream of measurements. Every single point in that stream has two things, a value and a super precise timestamp. That's it. That's the building block for everything else. But here is the absolute game changer: labels. Instead of just having a metric called API requests, Prometheus lets you add these little key value pairs for context, so you can see requests for a specific customer, or for a certain HTTP endpoint, or from a particular region. This is what lets you slice and dice your data in incredibly powerful ways. So how does it actually get this data? The best analogy I've ever heard is this. Prometheus is like a photographer. It doesn't just sit back and wait for your app to mail it a status update. No way. It actively goes out, points its lens at your system, and takes a detailed snapshot at a regular interval, say every 15 seconds. This is what we call its pull-based architecture. And here's what that photo shoot looks like in practice. The Prometheus server connects to an endpoint on your application, usually called /metrics. Your app, or a little helper called an exporter, just shows all of its current readings as plain text. Prometheus then scrapes that text, adds a timestamp, and saves it. That scrape is the snapshot. It's beautifully simple and incredibly reliable. All right, so if Prometheus is the photographer, what exactly is it taking pictures of? Well, it's looking for a few fundamental types of metrics, and each one tells a slightly different part of your system's story. First up, we've got the counter. Honestly, the best way to think about this is like the odometer in your car. It only ever goes up. It just keeps ticking higher and higher. It's absolutely perfect for counting things that accumulate, like the total number of events that have ever happened. A perfect real-world example you'll see everywhere is HTTP_requests_total. Every time a request hits your server, this number just goes up by 1. It never goes down. The only way it goes back to 0 is if you restart the whole service. Simple as that. Okay, so if a counter is your car's odometer, then our next type, the gauge, is your speedometer. It can go up and it can go down. A gauge is designed to capture a value at one specific moment, a snapshot of a state that can change, like temperature or current users online. A really common use for a gauge is tracking something like memory usage. The amount of memory your app is using right now can go up and down all the time, right? That makes it a perfect job for a gauge. And finally, we have the histogram. Now, this one's a bit more advanced, but it's super powerful. It doesn't just track one number. It tracks the distribution of numbers. It's amazing for things like request latency, because let's face it, the average latency doesn't tell you the whole story. You need to know how many users had a fast experience and how many had a painfully slow one. So how does it do this? Well, it's pretty clever. It sorts observations into buckets. For example, it might count how many requests finished in under 0.1 seconds, how many in under 0.5 seconds, and so on. By tracking these bucket counts, we can calculate really important things like 95th percentile latency, which gives you a much better picture of your typical user's experience. So let's just recap that real quick. Counters, they only go up, great for counting total events. Gauges, they go up and down, perfect for a current snapshot. And histograms, they track distributions using buckets. Getting these three down is absolutely crucial. Okay, so our photographer has been busy, and our camera roll is full of snapshots. But a folder full of raw photos isn't very useful, is it? We need to develop them into something meaningful. In the Prometheus world, we do that by asking questions with its query language, PromQL. And this is a really important point. The raw data by itself is often not what you're looking for. I mean, that HTTP_requests_total counter is just a massive number that keeps getting bigger. It doesn't really help you figure out if your site is slow right now. But check this out. This is where the PromQL magic happens. If you want to ask, how fast is that number going up, you use the rate function. This query here tells Prometheus to look at the HTTP request total over the last 5 minutes and calculate the average per second increase. And just like that, a useless, giant number becomes a super useful metric, your request throughput. Okay, but what if you have, say, 100 web servers all reporting this metric? That's where aggregation comes in. You can use an operator like SUM_by_job to add up the rates from all your different servers. And because of those labels we talked about, you can group them by their job so you see the total throughput for each of your services. See how it all comes together? So we've taken our photos, we've developed them with PromQL. The very last step is to put them all into a beautiful photo album that we can share. And for pretty much everyone, that photo album is Grafana. Now, to be clear, Prometheus does have its own basic web interface. It's totally fine for trying out queries and doing a little debugging. But when you want to build those powerful, permanent dashboards that your whole team relies on day to day, yeah, that is Grafana's job. It's the undisputed king of visualization. So let's trace the data one last time, from start to finish. First, your application is coded to show its metrics. Second, Prometheus comes along and scrapes that data. Third, you tell Grafana where to find your Prometheus server. And finally, inside Grafana, you write those same PromQL queries to pull the data and build your visualizations. That's the whole flow. And there it is, the complete picture. Your application generates the signal, Prometheus captures and organizes it, and Grafana turns it all into an actionable story. This right here is the modern observability stack in a nutshell. So there you have it. We've covered the what, the why, and the how. You now have the fundamental tools to actually observe what your systems are doing in real time. The only question left is, what questions are you going to ask?